So there's a few pictures up there. I'll just make sure. Okay. So Sponge 2020, as you can tell, it's a great name, Sponge 2020. It's an Interreg ERDF funded project, part funded project. We're in our last year, and our focus is Taunton. It's all about, it is about SuDS, but actually it's about the way we engage with people. It's about co-design. You know, that engagement, that co-design and getting communities on board and sort of part of the solution is a key part of it. We did our stuff in Taunton, but there was stuff going on all over Northern Europe, and there was some stuff in Basildon and some stuff in Essex. So I'll give you the site at the end of the presentation, and you know, have a look at a lot of the other stuff that was going on. So it's a local action project. So the local action type scenario is that this is a DEFRA tool that was produced with the trust. It's about how you do proper engagement. So, you know, traditionally we go in and we hit an area with a project and there's not an awful lot of engagement goes on. But the LAP is about how you can actually use evidence and engagement, work with the communities, because with evidence and engagement, with the evidence you can understand where the issues are, what you can actually do with that community and that area, and then provide them with the solutions and show them. You know, so rather than just saying this is what we're going to do, it's actually about showing them. So the key thing, indicators of provision. So I'll show you, there's quite a few slides on the benefits wheel, but actually the first thing you've got to do is understand what is your current natural habitat, what is the current provision, the benefits of an area. That will allow you to identify opportunities and sectors you can work in, provide the suitable interventions, and then you do the planning and the delivering. So it's a way of working in an area that we're not terribly used to, but the LAP is a very, very good tool, you know, that we can all use. So here is the, I can't see that properly, so I'll point up here. So this is the benefits wheel. So basically what you have is you have effectively 4 sectors: social, cultural, environmental and economic. And in each of those sectors, it's a little bit, you know, you have air quality, flood risk indicators. So, for example, flood risk indicators about the number of residents that have a greater than 1 year in 100 chance of flooding. So bad is in the middle, good is high. Okay, so it's very pictorial. Aesthetic value of landscape. So if we were looking at a parkland or something like that, you'd expect there to be a high level of aesthetics. Water quality, so John, who was gone, you're talking about water quality, so you know the benefits and the pros of water quality. So all of these elements is something you can pictorially understand, bad to good, and that gives you a bit of an understanding of what's going on in an area. And the way you use these, this wheel, we use GIS, geospatial mapping, to basically understand what's going on in Taunton. So a little bit about Taunton. So this is our work area for Sponge 2020. That gives you a spatial map of the population density. So you know, you start to build up an understanding of your area. So that's what when I'm talking about evidence, this is, you know, almost the first start. So you know, we understand where's the highly dense areas, etc. In Taunton there. You've all seen pictures like this. Somerset County Council are partners of ours in this, so I pinched one of their slides. But this is showing some of these surface water flooding in Taunton. From the River Tone, there's an awful lot of flooding issues, which is one of the reasons we wanted to work in the area. So that gives you a bit of an idea of where the key flooding areas are. And so you've got to understand what your current natural capital is. So we talk, you know, those benefits wheels, they basically utilise things like the current natural assets. So things like parks, gardens, wetlands and ponds, allotments, all of those things are all mapped out. So different areas will have different elements of those benefits wheel. The amount of data out there is quite phenomenal, really. So this is actually a single ward. So in Taunton Dean, we were able to gather information down to ward level to that sort of you know, level of understanding. So what that means is when you actually put all that data together, you actually have sort of quite a detailed local understanding of what's going on. So parks and amenities and green spaces. So this is how you would use your wheel. So there's your spatial map. The wheel for parks and amenities is up there. So the access to nature one is very high for a park and amenity. You know, and as you work around different elements, the cultural diversity is very high, because if you have a park, you tend to have a lot more cultural things going on in the park. A very big thing, a very important thing that local authorities are starting to catch on to now is about the climate regulation. So cities have, you know, we all understand about the heating of cities and the like. Actually, having green spaces, especially if they're blue green spaces with water, allows you to have some cooling elements, which are going to become more and more important with climate change as it goes forward. So that just shows you how that tool will work. Again, we do something similar. So we use allotments and orchards. It gives us a different sort of wheel. Different parts of the city have different, you know, so you're starting to build that picture up of what different parts of the city have got, or the town have got. And then again with private gardens. So, you know, garden space is massively important, and we're losing it a lot. What you tend to find is that private gardens do tend to link into the issue around, you know, where is the areas of deprivation, etc. You tend to find that big garden spaces and areas of less deprivation and the like. So there's always a lot of cross-mapping. Urban rivers, so obviously a reasonable access to nature. Now these wheels do two things. It shows you where things are good, but obviously it's showing you where the opportunities are. Okay, so you know when you're looking at these as a source of information. So obviously you've got access to nature already, but where could we actually improve things? How can we improve things in the community? But you've got to link that. So now this is social deprivation indicator. So we've looked at the natural capital. What have we got? And there's a number of other slides. I didn't kill you with all the slides I have on that. But actually then you've got to link it to things like the social deprivation. So index of multiple deprivation actually has a whole load of metrics which goes into it. This shows you the sort of data that's available to GIS, to yourselves, to actually start understanding what's going on in your communities or in the communities where you work. So social deprivation, then an indicator of general health. So you can see, you know, these all interlink. And what you then end up with, so there's 12, that wheel has got basically 12 segments, and then what you could effectively do for each of the wards in the area, from low to high provision, you can basically pick up the 12, you know, is it low? So up here, access to natural space. So low is light, so this area here, for example, has a low access to natural space. Some of the darker areas, they've got, you know, there's a lot more greenery around and the like. So, you know, same with air quality. You tend to find that parkland and places like that, you tend to get better air quality. Places with bigger gardens, etc., depending on where the roads are. So, you know, your air quality, again, you can sort of see it's starting to hit the same sort of areas. But you're building up a picture of what's going for us in Taunton. And you can do this for most places. And there's the other 6, so water quality, so the flows, habitats and wildlife, property value, very important one, and flood damage cost, and local climate regulation. So you sort of basically for each of those, and what that allows you to do, so it's a bit of an explosion map, but for all of the wards in Taunton, so you know that's quite a small location, you then end up with effectively the benefits and opportunities wheel for each of those different wards. Okay, so you know this is the evidence. So you know it's a bit of quantitative, a bit qualitative, it's a bit of both, but actually it's very, very powerful. Not necessarily to say, right, we've got to work in this area, but actually to start opening up those discussions. You know, where do we really want to work? Where should we be doing things? Where the opportunities are. So it's allowing you to start those conversations. And so for the Sponge 2020, we use the natural assets, the social and economic, so you know the areas of hardship and the like, and the ecosystem services, highlighted for us certain areas that we wanted to work. So Norton Fitzwarren, if you know Taunton, but central Taunton as you'd expect. And these basically, putting that all together, this is the sort of areas that we intended to work in. So, I beat you to death with the evidence and engagement. So what do we actually do with it? Well, we did a bit of both. We did actually quite a lot of schools work, because actually schools is a very, very good way of engaging. But we also did a couple of community stuff. So Kilkenny Court was is a very large old people's complex. Middleway is a social housing area, again with some more elderly people in it, and a number of school type work. So I'll give you some nice pictures now, and not as eloquent as Charlene, but sort of let you know the sort of thing we did. So Selworthy Sensory Rain Garden, basically this is a special school for 4 to 19-year-olds. They having constant flooding in their playground, and they rely on their outdoor spaces an awful lot. But every time it rained, basically everything turned into a mud bath, and they couldn't use it for days. So we had, with the parents and the children, designed this sensory rain garden. So there's lots of smelly features, food features around, and it takes a heck of a lot of water, that rain garden. So this is Shona, who's our education person, pouring water over a child, which is always good fun. They love that. Lesson learned on that one, we had this lovely white path that went through the middle of it. After about 6 months, that had just turned into mud, and the children loved rolling in it, so we weren't overly popular. But actually 12 months on, the garden's actually really good. So it's larger than it looks, but that's actually effectively the garden. It's actually a really good space now. There's a lot of good stuff going on there. Demonstration rain garden. So early on, we did what this was with the old people's home, and basically we used the data and evidence. So Taunton had a lot of flooding. This is down by the railway station. A lot of it was coming from this Kilkenny Court area. So we thought we'd do a few projects based around that area, and it was a planter type system. So you know, the sort of thing, planting, construction, working with the community. What did they want? Where did they want it? It's about that engagement element. And 2 years on, so this is one of the planters, and they've got a barbecue thing just behind, so it's actually used. There's another planter around the other side, which I haven't shown you, which is just absolute disaster, because the people in that area just weren't interested, and it fell into disrepair. So not everything goes swimmingly and sunningly. So Middleway, this is a community area, so basically you've got flatlets in a circle, with a couple of green spaces and a couple of trees. Mostly sort of people in their 70s, 80s. So the design, basically taking it off one roof space, going across the road. It was all designed again with the community, so community sit-down events, some enthusiastic people, some very negative people, trying to get everyone on board. Eventually they decided what they want, and we came up with this scheme here. And we got everyone involved in the planting and the helping, etc. It's quite a good day. I mean, it's about that deep, so it's it's a substantial feature. An awful lot of construction went into that. It doesn't look so big there, but for instance, on it's actually a really nice feature, and very well liked by the residents. So I pop up there every now and again to say hello. So some of our school stuff, we linked it with an engineering project about women working in water, but about getting the kids involved in engineering, which is really, really important. And we basically got, with the children in the school, basically pretty much what Charlene was saying. So getting them to understand the water cycle, getting them to understand what happens to water on the ground. So getting them with buckets, they were throwing water all over the place. You know, what happens when you throw it on the pavement, in the grass, etc. But actually then with sort of various, pouring through different types of material, but then getting the kids to actually design the SuDS. So, which is always quite scary, because you never know what they're going to come up with, and you've got to try and build what they come up with to some fashion. So, so 2 schools that were Holway Primary, which was basically a courtyard with a pond, and AstroTurf. What do you do there? And Lingford Park Primary, basically we're taking off the roof space and off the side, and they basically what they designed is they wanted it down some rain chains through a pond, along a real pebbly thing, bog, so we thought we could probably do that. So Lingford Park, basically that's our little rain garden there. The children had good fun because there hadn't been rain for ages, so they had to be running in and out with buckets of water, so we could actually get some pictures. They enjoyed that. And so we built it, and then getting them involved with planting. They get exceedingly muddy, exceedingly wet, and it was a really good day, actually, quite tiring. But all the different classes, I think we had about 80 classes involved in doing that, so, very engaging. With Holway, different type of SuDS, so basically it was getting the kids interested in plants, obviously. So we had a wall planter which was going through, that's a cloud at the top, dribbling through and then going back into the drain, so sort of, getting them to understand that. On the other side we had a tipper bucket, so the water coming through the tipper bucket into this here, which is very useful because their pond has a leak, so they're constantly using that water to top their pond up, as opposed to trailing hose pipe through. But this is the end products. It was what Charlene was talking about. It's all about how you're getting the kids engaged, getting them to understand. Primary school children, God, they know a hell of a lot, and they are so engaging to work with. The level of science they do at primary school now is exceedingly high, and you get to the parents through them. That was part of what we wanted to do. We then had celebration events at the end where we invited the parents to come and see what the kids had done, and then we got engaged with the parents more as well, you see. So it's about how you get people engaged. And we followed up. So that was, they were doing a story about flamingos, that's why they're standing on one foot, and doing balloon races. It's got nothing to do with SuDS whatsoever, but actually it was about engineering, and we linked in, there was SuDS in the storybook we were using and the like. So reinforcing the message, you don't just go in and then disappear. You want to reinforce it a few times, get them engaged and keep them engaged. Somerset County Council, who aren't here today, they've basically been looking at various schemes which haven't really started yet. I think Charlene alluded to it. I think one of the problems local authorities have is procurement. So we have very strict procurement rules that follow our European guidelines, and I think Somerset had a lot of problems with how they procure and do certain things. So we probably, it was easier for us to do things than the council. But they were fully engaged with us. But they've done a lot on the policy and how they engage with people that are doing SuDS in Somerset. And they're planning on, in County Hall, putting a whole load of features. So hopefully in a few months they'll have done that as well. So that's a massive race through. So now, I did promise I would go through the toolbox. I haven't. So if you get the urbanbluegreengrids.com/sponge, there's a massive information available for you to look at, download. The projects, of course, ours are rain garden based. There are some much bigger projects over in Europe that are totally different. What the Basildon were doing, working with hospitals. Essex have been working, doing SuDS alongside the beach and the like. So there's a lot going on there. Somerset Sponge.org, that's our little local website where we're doing some projects on sponge purely in Somerset. You can see that there. The other things we're doing, Cornwall County, love what we've been doing up in Somerset, and it would be nice to be working down in Cornwall because it's a lot closer to home. And they want to do a greening schools project with us, so we just put a bid in for that. And we're looking at 2021 onwards how we take it forward, because the trouble with projects is they come to an end, and funding stops, and then you hit a brick wall. Actually, you need these things to carry on. How do you take it to the next level? How do you improve on what you've done? How do you engage more people and the like? And that's what we're trying to do with Somerset County. And the little preventing plastic pollution, it's got nothing to do with SuDS, but it is to do with rivers. It's a project that we've just started with the Southeast Rivers Trust and 16 other organisations, Queen Mary, Plymouth University, and a whole load of other organisations, about plastics, the way it gets into the rivers and into the seas, and actually about how the hell we can start tackling that, which is very important as well. Okay, thank you. Any burning questions?
Claire Raftery from Berks County Council. Just a really quick one. Really like the benefits and opportunity wheels you've got going on. Are you planning to kind of do a post-implementation analysis using those as well to kind of see the difference that you've made?
That's a very good question. And so the 2021 onwards, that is what we want to be doing with Somerset County Council, because the nature of doing anything with when you're doing engagement followed by co-creation followed by putting it in is actually quite a long way down on the project. So The SELWORTHY school we put in 2 years ago, but actually a lot of the other school stuff we put in this summer just gone. So we want to, and I have been back, I've done a bit of reading, but we definitely want to be doing that going forward. But yeah, using the benefit wheel is probably a good idea actually, because that benefit wheel scenario could be used in so many ways. You could use it as, how engaged were you before and after, so but the concept's very, very good. But yes.
Cheers, thank you.